Hello, buddy. Welcome back to the Tin Man Squirrel channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and today I'm reading another chapter out of my Bigfoot Terror Tales Vol.1 book. And this chapter is called In the Forest of the Far Land by Christine Morgan. Now, I already skimmed through to see how many pages the story is. It's about 5 pages long. So I might have to end up doing 2 parts. So let's start off with part 1 right now. I should have brought my harp, Thorkill said as we sat by our fire. The dark woods gloomed shadowed and ominous around us. Your harp, Fenborn snorted with scorn. To kill with your singing what you couldn't kill with a spear. Ingolf and Gunther laughed at the insult, and for a moment I almost laughed as well. But I stopped myself even before Fenris elbowed her brother hard in the ribs. I did this not to win favor with proud and pretty Fenris. Well, not only that reason, but because Thorkill was my friend. So this lady wrote the story like around the Viking era. He might have been no great hunter, thin and scrawny and clumsy as he was, but he had still come with us, had proved himself braver than those others of our friends who had stayed home to look after the fields and flocks, to fish and do farm work. We 6, we were the sons and one daughter of warriors, not farmers and fishermen. Our fathers had fought in great battles, been in the shield walls and given slaughter to their enemies. Before taking to sea in the long ships to seek this far land and make it their own, we had been raised from the cradle on tales of blood and plunder, swords and glory. A song would be nice. Fenris said. She smiled at Thorkin, her golden hair gleaming. Every hall must have a skald to sing and tell the stories. And in this, our hall, I asked, gesturing around. It was no hall, of course, not even a shelter, just a camp we had made in a clearing, scraping away deep layers of pine needles to find bare earth, then making a ring of stories to pile branches and kindling at the center. We had logs to serve as benches, and our spears stuck in the ground so they stood jutted toward the star-pierced summer sky. If it is, said Gunther, which of us is the Lord? That stirred some argument, good-natured though it was, with each of us putting forth their own right to claim. Ingolf was the oldest, already boasting a reddish fringe of beard. Fenborn had brought down the most game. Thorkill's family was wealthiest, as he reminded us by showing off the chain of silver he wore around his neck. Gunther was the biggest, wide across the shoulders and stout as a barrel. I, Wilfric, was the quickest, and some said the cleverest. You cannot be lord if you're to be the skald, Gunther told Thorkill. Well, he won't be skald in my hall, Fenborn said. His music will curdle the milk and set all the dogs to howling. You cannot be lord if Fenris is to be the lady, Ingolf said. She is your sister. Fenris scowled. Why must I be the lady of the hall? Because you're a girl, he said. So? So you will spine and weave, and she bounced a pine cone off his head. I am a sword maiden. You don't have a sword. I have this. She drew her knife, which had a wide leaf-shaped blade, sharp edge and taper into a good stabbing point. You shouldn't have taunted her, or else she wouldn't pull that blade out on you. We argued a while more, coming to no conclusions, but enjoying ourselves past at the time while we roasted one of the hares over the flames and ate it dripping with greasy juices and chunks of bread torn from a loaf. We brought with us The hunting trip had been my idea. Not because we needed the game, but because we were young and impetuous, chafing under chores and weary of having our elders looking over our shoulders. And they, for their part, were just as glad to have us out from underfoot. I don't want to be a lord, Gunther said, gnawing at the bone. I will be a warrior. Oh, you will not, said Finborn. You'll be a blacksmith like your uncle. I'll be a blacksmith and a warrior, Gunther said. You'll make horseshoes and cooking pots, Ingolf said. He made a rude noise and spat into the fire. Gunther bristled swords and spear points, axes and mail coats. For what? Thorkill asked. To bring battle to no one. We fell silent for a while at that, finishing our meal, handling around a skin of weakened watered ale. What Thorkill said was true enough. We all knew there were no kings here, no mighty warlords to lead great armies or fleets of beast-prone ships. We had no enemies. Here, there were only us, and the Skraelings. I shivered, though I did not mean to, and I had no reason. It was as if some strange foreboding passed over me, but I pushed it from my mind and ignored it. I sailed back to the countries of our grandfathers. I'll become a warrior there. I wouldn't mind having my own ship, Ingolf stirred the embers with a stick. Watching the sparks fly, I'll go wherever I like, trading and raiding. We had news sometimes when men hungry for it, or hungry for the sea, old friends, fresh places and faces, took loads of lumber and furs to trade for other goods. We had visitors sometimes and new neighbors when more folk chose to follow and settle. Only once that I could recall had a ship come to the river mouth of our valley that, instead of spilling forth men eager to trade and talk, had spilled forth men eager to kill. I had been a lad of 8 then, too young to do anything but go with my mother when she and the rest of the women took the children and fled upon the wooded hills. I remember watching from that distance as the strangers came with their swords and spears. I remember my father in his bright helm, how fast he was, how agile, how shiny a warrior when I had foolishly thought him a settled old man with strands of silver in his beard. I remember the fathers of my friends, likewise, seeming young again and gleeful. I remember their shields and their shouting weapons, jabbing and slashing, and how I had seen the red blood spear high into the air, how I had heard the screams of the dying. Later, when the work of men was done, our mothers led us back down, and we helped with the stripping of the corpses and their ship. Fentress had found her leaf-bladed knife then, and thought only a child she used it with ruthless fury when one of the invaders proved to have some life left in him and clutched at her, begging for mercy. I remember, too, my mother falling upon my father, her arms around his neck, sobbing, how he had held her, comforted her, even with the blood of battle still drying upon his hands. He had given her a necklace of gold and given me a bronze ring in the shape of a horse's head. We might never know that battle fever, the joy and terror. We might never seize plunder from our dead foes and win glory and be known. I will have my own hall, said Fentress, stretching out her legs to warm her feet by the fire. I will command warriors and reward them with treasure and have feast every night. And be a mighty lord, said her brother. Lord Fentress. Will your husband nurse the babies? Who says I'll have a husband? Of course you'll have a husband. Every woman has to have a husband. The daughters of Odin don't, Thorkill said. She's no Valkyrie, said Ingolf, whooping and slapping his leg. I looked at Fentress and thought she could be a Valkyrie or a war queen, but that she would certainly be no man's mild and gentle wife would be a waste of her. Well, Fenborn said, you can have your small dreams, but I, Fenborn Fenrolfsson, will do better than any of that. I will be a hero like from the old tales. I'll fight giants and dragons, monsters and sorcerers. My name and reputation will live 1,000 years after they bury me in a hall of pure gold. When we were all done laughing at that, Fenris glanced at me, and you, Wulfric, when Gunther is a warrior and Ingolf is a shipmaster, when I am lord and Thorkin is skald, when Fenbord is fighting giants, what would you be? I ran my thumb over at my horse's head ring, which I used to wear around my neck on a leather cord, but could not fit upon my finger. I wonder if I would be as fast as my father. He had trained me and said I moved with the same speed and grace, but there was considerable difference between practice and the truth of battle. I don't know, I said, which seemed to disappoint her. Disappointed them all. I was supposed to be the clever one, and I could think of nothing to say. So I added, the first thought that came to mind, maybe I'll make friends with the Skraelings and learn their ways, learn their wild spirit magic. Live among them, she asked, teasing. Have a black-haired Skraeling for your woman and braid feathers into her. They'll kill you, Ingolf said. They're peaceful enough, I said. They're cowards, said Fenbor. They trade with us only because they know we're stronger. They're afraid. We did not often see the Skraelings. When they did come, it was along the coast paddling in their small and narrow boats, bringing fine furs, hides, and fish. They were broad-faced and brown-skinned, dark-eyed, with hair like raven's wings. They have some other name for themselves, but we call them Skraelings, for the way their words sounded like the screeching of birds. The fire burned low, and we bundled ourselves into our cloaks to sleep beneath the high pine thoughts that waved and whispered in the night breeze. I was the last to succumb, uneasy and restless, twitching to full wakefulness, and every sound until at last my weariness overcame me. I dreamt I heard my mother singing to me, and my little sister weeping. I dreamt my father stood over me, solemn and grim, as he held out to me in both his bloodied hands his sword, Icewind. I dreamt of silence and stillness. I woke to pale dawn and Fenmore snoring. My stomach felt sick. My mouth tasted sore. A nameless urgency beat within my breast, outmatching the pace of my heart, and I shook the others from their own slumber. We must get home, I said. It's early yet, I said, Gunther rolling over and drawing his cloak over his head. I kicked him in the hip, and he sprang up, indignant, ready to fight. But I turned from him and grabbed my spear from where it stuck in the ground. What? Yawned Thorkin, his hair standing out in gray sleep clumps. What is it? A bear? Wulfric. Fentrix watched me, her blue eyes wary. I shook my head because I did not have the words, but somehow she understood whatever mood had possessed me, for she nodded and helped me break the camp. We all shook the pine needles from our clothes, fetched our game from where we hung it so no scavengers could steal it, and set out through the woods toward the green river valley of home. Gunther grumbled and Fenbor protested the quick march. I set, but a glare from Fentress slammed them, and they followed with no further objections. The woods grew thinner as we neared the coast, morning sunlight trickling through the trees like a golden honey. Soon I smelled the salt air of the sea and heard the raucous cries of gulls. Many gulls. A storm must be coming, Ignolf said. The sky is clear. I pointed eastward, where no clouds loomed. Ventress tipped her head to one side. The sky is very clear. Where is the smoke? We looked and saw no smoke rising from the valley, no smoke from the cook fires in the ovens where bread was baked, no smoke from the smithy, no smoke at all. Then we came closer and saw the cluster of huts and houses that had been our village was now a butcher's yard, where the ghouls feasted on the slaughtered corpses. None of us moved. We just stared, the 6 of us in a line, eyes wide and mouths hung open, our spears dangling half forgotten from our hands. There was a meaty thump as Thimborn let the carcasses fall, and we stared, men and women, children and animals. The grass and earth were dark with blood beneath their strewn bodies. Some were torn to pieces, some gutted so the flies buzzed thick over the heaps of their entrails. Oh! I know that'll be a sickening sight to see, good lordy. Leaves a bad taste in my mouth, just thinking about it. There was another meaty thump. This one, as Gunther fainted, Thorkin whimpered like a child, and Ingolf spun away, heaving. I thought Ventress might scream like a girl, but she only gripped my hand so tightly I felt the bones grind together. The nearest ghouls kept their oily black gazes upon us, but continued feasting. I grimaced as they dipped their skinny, hooked beaks to pluck eyes from sockets, or plunge into open bellies to pull out long streams of grissom. Oh, God almighty. I don't know about you guys, but seeing a sight like that, I would be kind of fainting. Makes my eyes hurt just saying that they pulled the eyes out of their sockets. Good lordy. They threw back their heads, and their throats worked as they swallowed their gruesome morsels down their fat, illicit gullets. We have to help them, Thorkin said. There might be survivors wounded. Oh, don't be a fool, Finnbor shouted. Survivors, look around you. They're dead. Everyone, all of them dead. He was right, but we did not want to believe him. We rushed into the village, running from house to house, calling the names of our parents, our family, our neighbors, our friends. The ghouls flapped away, shrieking, and settled again in our wake, too greedy to leave even when we hurled stones at them. Theirs were the only answering voices. Theirs the only movements besides our own. A madness fell over us, one of anguish and grief and terror and rage. I cared nothing for what the rest did, conscious only of my own house and what I found there. The door had been wrenched loose, the furnishings thrown asunder in a terrible violence. The bodies of my mother and little sister were crumpled in the corner, broken like eggs. My father lay by the cold hearth, his head crushed, his limbs twisted at strange angles. He had died in his loose lying sleep shift, barefooted, and had not even had time to don his helmet or seize his shield. His stiff, dead fist held Icewind's hilt, and the sword's fine blade was stained with blood. Alright, I'm going to stop it right here. So, that's going to be it for now, but don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more book reading content like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor. I say that's a wrap, and have a nice day.